Everybody, thanks for joining me on All Things Division III Soccer with Simple Coach and Jackie. I am Simple Coach, and you know who that is. That's Jackie. Got a great show for you in store today. Gonna run through some thoughts over the last couple weeks, and gonna do my top 25s for the men's and women's teams. I apologize for not doing this last week. I have, as I explained in one of my episodes of Muskingum Rising, I have a JOB that is not FUN at sometimes. So that sort of got in the way of my, YouTube influencing. So why don't we begin? I'm going to run through some of my thoughts for the day, and yeah, let's go from there. Okay, so I gotta get the rough stuff out first. So there's been something gnawing at me, and it's been for a little bit now, but it's only been confirmed. And I've made some comments in the past on the d3soccer.com boards, and I figured I'd come clean on this episode of Around D3, and it's about Connecticut College. Seriously. And this is just an observation from the outside, and I could be totally wrong. And if that's the case, I'm super happy. So Connecticut College wins a national championship in 2021, the first for the men's program, and the first national championship for Connecticut College in any sport. And look, and I get it's D3 and students first, athletes second. I get it. I get that. But, I think I would have expected something from Connecticut College to, let me just say, celebrate, memorialize, whatever, the success of their soccer program. The one that brought them that national championship. I watched the game. I watched a game on the grass field, the lovely grass field. And then I watched on the turf field, overlooking the river. Beautiful. But, I don't know. Maybe get them a new scoreboard to celebrate, or, have some big banner that says national champions. I don't know. Get a golden camel. There's camels all over that place. Pictures, statue, whatever. Something. I mean, I know Christopher Newport women at least have a banner, right? Like, so I don't know, something that calls it out. I think that would have been a worthy of the effort that the men's team put forth last year representing Connecticut College. So I'll just leave it at that. Comment below if you agree or disagree, or I'm missing something that with the school. But yeah, that's my opinion right now. Okay, Calvin's women's team is standing at 10-0 and has not conceded a goal. Yeah, I'll leave that hang there. Definitely top 10 ranking. All right, this is totally off the beaten path. I think there's a crisis in this country's institutions of higher learning. I've said it for a long time, and in particular in their choice of beverage vendors. Some have resisted that tide and that tantalizing, overrated and pricey, nonsensical, faux, sophisticated beverages. I'm joining a small but vocal, well, quite frankly, it's only Jackie and I, and only when she sees the mailman, movement. Our hashtag is hashtag Simple Coach says adios to Starbucks. My goal is for every Division III school who is held hostage by the evil empire to shake their shackles off and replace it with one of the following coffees. And now you'll understand my D3 approach to here. So I'm going to start with one line coffee. So when you're at Denison University and you have to get your caffeine fix at the River Road Coffee House. And if that doesn't float your boat, when you're in Wheeling, driving on your way to Bethany, stop by the Wheeling Coffee and Spice Company. Not only is their coffee fantastic, but the cookies are outrageous too. I'd then say, just because, right there, Crimson Cup Coffee and Tea, which is the preferred coffee of the Mount Union Purple Raiders. And then lastly, which I think probably is heads and toes and heads and shoulders over all the other coffees. As can be expected, RPAI is leading the way. Get yourself some Death Wish coffee. You know, the world needs us right now. Our country's future is at stake. And if we can rid ourselves of this pestilential coffee that we call Starbucks, we would all be so much happier. Okay, only 5 women's teams remain unbeaten. For the men, yes, this weekend was very, very difficult. Number of teams dropped, but for the men, there's only 2 undefeated teams. Both Midwestern teams, Wisconsin Eau Claire at 13-0, and of course the University of Chicago at 10-0. Okay, so piggybacking on Paul Newman and the news show, there are only 2 games I was really interested in on Sunday. That was the Chicago men's and women's teams going up against the University of Rochester at the University of Rochester. Or should I just call them the University of Paywall? The university with the 20th, and this is from Newsweek, 20th largest endowment in the world. Roughly $2.4 billion in assets. Makes anyone interested in watching a Division III soccer game having to pay $5.95 a game, or get unlimited access for a day for $7.95. You can do the same for a month for $10.95, or for $89.95, you can get yourself a yearly pass to watch every University of Rochester sport. I'm betting you that they probably have a deal struck with Starbucks, and I bet you, to top it off, to add insult to injury, their bookstore is run by Barnes & Noble and charges outrageous prices for hats. Okay. Hey, having watched them this weekend and watched another game a couple weeks ago, I'm just going to say this. Keep an eye out for the Case Western Reserve women's teams. They are legit and serious contenders for the national title. They are really legit. Okay, so I'm going to run down, because I'm a YouTube influencer, where are most people, when you watch a video on YouTube, where does my content get promoted? So thanks to YouTube, I know the 5 videos that recommend my channel the most. The first is Pack Life at Yellowstone National Park. The second is The Mystery of the 2,000-Year-Old Tools Frozen in the Yukon, from the series Secrets from the Ice. The third, Which Apex Predator is Top Cat? And I think it's the Top Cats series. I don't even know what this one says. And then the last one, the Antikythera mechanism, a shocking discovery from ancient Greece. Yeah, we're getting somewhere. Okay, and lastly, probably more importantly, one of the crazy posters on D3Soccer.com on the boards. Remember, D3Soccer.com, underneath there's like a little yellowish button that says message boards. You click on through. He's going to start a weekly men's soccer pool and is looking for participants. And I think I read it's like he'll post 10 games, you guess the scores, and then the The winner at the end of the season gets a Rice Krispie treat or something like that. I will say that the number one spot is already spoken for. I am pretty confident in that I will be winning the Rice Krispie treat, but second place is always available. So if you get a chance, by all means, take a look at the boards and join in the fun. Okay, so lastly, let's jump in to the women's top 25. Now, these are getting a little tricky. The women's not so much. The men's are totally off the charts tricky these days. This is the time where you start to see this happening, right? Where you're starting to settle in on the best teams in the country. And then the rest, there's probably about 10 to 15 that can easily flow one way or another because they lack the consistency that those big dogs do. So with that, let's jump into the top 25 women's teams. So first up, 25th spot at 8-3, Puget Sound. They weren't rated before. They have 4 wins in a row, including a really good win against Pacific Lutheran. So I think they definitely deserve the nod. At number 24, Emory 6-2. They weren't rated last time, and they've had losses to Pacific Lutheran and Puget Sound, but they've rolled to 5 consecutive wins thereafter. So, 23, Williams at 6-2. Again, not rated previously. They had really good wins against Tufts, Bowdoin, and Amherst. And so I think this Williams team deserves a spot and has some legs. So number 22, up 3, giving it to Trinity at 9-0-1. I think the record speaks for itself in the fact that they're on an 8-game winning streak while only conceding 1 goal. At 21, again, another one not rated at 10-0. Again, you can't argue with the record. They do have a tough stretch coming up, including the College of New Jersey on the 15th, which should be a real humdinger of a game. At 20th, MIT down 4. They had a tough loss to Tufts. I do think they need some sort of statement win to sort of keep staying up on the top 25, and they do have Babson coming up, so that could be that game. 19 is Carnegie Mellon. They were not rated previously. Since tying Johns Hopkins, which is no small feat, they've gone on to win 4 straight. At 18th, at 7-1-1, is Virginia Wesleyan. Since they tied Mary Washington, they've had 3 wins in a row, so they're not a flash in the pan of that successful early part of the season. 17 is Bowdoin at 7-2. They weren't rated previously. They've had losses to Connecticut and Williams, but then they beat Babson, which is typical NESCAC, throwing everybody for a loop. But I do think this team has legs, and I do think that they're better than even I gave them credit for. So up at 16, up 1 is Mary Hardin Baylor. Look, they're 9-0. Record speaks for itself. But looking at their schedule, I think they need to be tested. I'm not sure their schedule is giving them the type of tests that you would expect for. So I'll be keeping an eye on that. Okay, so now 15 up 3 is Pacific Lutheran at 8-1-1. They're the same spot as, they're up 3, sorry. They've had 3 solid wins since they lost to Puget Sound, but I will say they do have 3 tough games coming up. So Hobarton Smith at 7-1-2 is 14th. They stand at 7-1-2. They're up 6 spots, as I mentioned. Since they tied Skidmore, they have a 3-game winning streak without getting scored on. So again, another team that I think is better than I gave them credit for originally. So at 13, down 2, they tied Wartburg, but they keep on winning since that loss to Illinois Wesleyan a few weeks back. So yeah, they're a stable team. So number 12, down 7. I know that's kind of harsh. Is Tufts at 6-2-1. They have this great win against MIT, but then they lose at home to Trinity, and I think that really sunk in. I wasn't too enamored with their play on against Trinity, so maybe it's just a blip. They can bounce back up, but as of right now. At 11 is Wartburg, up 7. I'm really liking this team. They only have a tie. Their only real blemish is a tie against Wisconsin lacrosse. But again, I think their record speaks for itself. They're taking care of business. So, 10th is Babson, down 3 spots from last time. This is just a reflection of a tough loss to Bowden, and yeah, which explains why Bowden's in and they're down. Babson's down 3. So at 9, staying in at the same spot as Amherst, 7-2. They did lose to Williams, but then they followed it up and just put 7 in on Leslie, which I thought was pretty, a pretty good way to bounce back from that tough loss. So number 8 is Pomona Pitzer. They're up 4, and after a midseason stumble, they've gone on and they've won 4, including against Redlands and Cal Lutheran. So yeah, I'm liking this team. So number 7, which they're climbing the ladder steadily, they're up 4 after what I think was like a fluke loss to Salisbury. Again, new coach, new coaching staff, probably new style, all of that. TC&J has gone 8-0-1, and that reflects that climb up the ladder. So, and then number 6 at Calvin. Look, this is a team like I gotta watch a couple more games to just sort of get my arms around it, but they are 10-0. They are obviously undefeated. They're unscored on. So it's they either right spectacular goalkeeper or great team, right? So just gonna keep an eye. So number 6. Okay, so now the top 5, which is probably really, to me, is really interesting because they have stayed the same. Like there's been no movement, and I think that tells you how tight the race can be. So, up first is Messiah at number 5. They're at the same spot, 8-0-2. They tied Misericordia, and they're very good, and you'll see in their rankings. But then they turned around and had wins against Dickinson and Salisbury, and this is a good Messiah team. So, the difference between, I'll say, 2 and 5 is probably just choice. So, all right. So number 4 at the same spot, Case Western. I really dig this team, and I'm telling you, this is a team. I think if they end up in the final, I would not be surprised. I think they're that good. So they're 9-0, and they just keep rolling. And like I said, I just think this team is for real. Another one that's just for real, 7-0-2. In the last 5 games, Johns Hopkins has scored 20 goals, so 4 goals a game average, and has conceded none. So again, what I look at, especially when you start getting into the rarefied air, do they have the back line that helps them win championships, and then an attacking style that gets them goals. And I think in this case, the women at Johns Hopkins certainly do. Number 2, same spot. Misericordia, 8-0-1. They had a tie against number 5 Messiah, right? So that's their only real blemishes. And then they turned around and had a good, solid win against a very good Scranton team, which could easily be in the ranks. And then they beat Arcadia. So, and then finally, the obvious one at number 1 is Christopher Newport. They're 9-0-1. They keep winning. In the last 4 games, they've only conceded 1 goal. They're double digits. Again, I look at them like I look at Johns Hopkins, like I look at Case, like I look at Messiah. Do they have, and Misericordia, do they have that back line and that front line that really makes them super solid, and again, and not to mention the fact that they are the reigning national champions. I just think they deserve the spot. So okay, so that's the women's top 25. If you agree, disagree, all that stuff you want, concerns, compliments, criticisms down below, or shoot me an email. I try to watch as many games as possible to help me judge these. There's only 3 polls that I'm aware of that are out there. It's the NCAA one, which is unique, right? They take the regional rankings. And there is the D3 soccer poll, top 25 poll, which I think is, again, a little bit different. And I think I'm probably the only fan poll that I'm aware of, but and clearly mine is far superior. Anyhow, hope you enjoyed, and like I said, any comments would be appreciated. And on to the men. Like I mentioned earlier, these are getting a little tricky, especially on the bottom half, where you're starting to see the separation between those that are really consistently good and those that are trying to get to that particular level. And I would say in this group, and I think there's probably only 2 teams right now that I really think are just sort of at a totally different level. So okay, so first up, let's go with Oneonta. They are 7-1-1. They're down 3. They beat New Paltz, but then they lost to Geneseo at home, and this just might be a stumble. But if they want to be taken seriously, I think they need a result against a good Potsdam team. Next up, St. Thomas, Texas. They're down 2. They tied Colorado College and yesterday lost to Southwestern. Yeah, down 2 at 3-2-4 is Tufts. So they lost to Hamilton after they tied, and then they tied Babson and Colby. So I'm going to just say something just seems amiss. They're surrendering the ball too much. I think they're having serious breakdowns in the middle of the field that is giving teams access to their back line and then to goal. And they thumped Trinity yesterday, but I think everyone, including myself, sort of expected that. Another one down 5, and I've said this before, Connecticut College 3-2-2. Seriously, there seems to be something wrong in New London. They're nowhere near close to what they were, and look to struggle in aspects of the game that were supposed to be their bread and butter. I think their passing and their ability to connect seems off, and they slow games down where I don't think they should. just because they're making passes that aren't most suited for that. I actually considered at one. I thought I would drop them, especially. I think it was Hamilton that they just lost to. But out of respect for the national champions, and I keep expecting, I think they're going to turn around. But like I said, something seems to be lacking, and I don't know if it's leadership or leadership on the field. I don't know if it's I'm not too sure where I can pin it. So next up, because I can, up for Milwaukee School of Engineering, 10-0-1. You could say whatever you want about their schedule. You could say lack of statement wins. They keep winning and they keep scoring goals, almost 3 goals a game, and that just can't be a fluke. 20th Bowdoin at 6-1-1, up 5 after the loss to Williams. It was a good team, rebounded with a win at Thomas, but I think really the big test will be on the 9th against Amherst, so next Sunday. Up 9 spot 19. I'm sorry, this is a paywall. To find out anything about this team or any reason why they're 19th, it costs $5.95 to open up the paywall. Okay, next up at 6-1-2, down 7 after a loss to Johns Hopkins. I thought it was it's a big drop, but I thought this was the game. I thought this was a game that was going to prove Gettysburg's mettle, and I don't think they met it. I thought they had a guy tossed for a reckless challenge, and I think Hopkins owned the ball quite a bit, and Gettysburg just didn't seem to have a reaction to it. So Amherst up 1 at 5-1-3. They tied Williams. I went back and forth on this one. I could have easily dropped them below. I mean, I could have put them in the 20s. They just look anemic, like they just don't look like they have that fire in the belly. Something's off again, just like with Connecticut. It just doesn't. They're just not impressing. They're not. It's just Next up, because I can, Wisconsin Eau Claire. I love Eau Claire's. 13-0, up 7, and look, you have to give it to them, right? They're 13-0, right? 13-0. They've scored 41 goals and only allowed 6. So I'm just giving credit where credit is due, and Next up, Luther. 6-1-2, up 9. I thought they showed a lot against the University of Chicago, even though they lost. And then they tied conference foe Dubuque 1-1 and beat Buena Vista. And then I think they just beat, who did they just beat? Saint Scholastica by a thumping. And again, they're doing what they need to do, and I think they should be rewarded for that. Next up, Hamilton up 5. Look, they had a great win against Connecticut, so can't deny that. 13, Carnegie Mellon, the much maligned Carnegie Mellon at 8-1-1, down 4. They did lose to NYU, which I think could be their unraveling. I thought this was another one of those statement games that they really needed to deliver on, especially at home. And look, Clarkson up number 12, up 3. A loss to Skidmore, but they rebounded against RIT, and they keep doing the job. So gotta give them credit there. Number 11, down 4, Wesleyan. 6-1-1. They tied against Hamilton and lost against Middlebury. So, is the sheen coming off? I don't know. Okay, number 10. This is where we start to get a little rough. North Park, down 8 from second in the country. It's not so much that they lost to Chicago, but it's in the manner they lost. I mean this respectfully to ECRL teams, but they look like a mid-level U17 ECRL team. And I just can't unsee that for the time being. I thought Chicago just had their way with them, and I didn't expect that from North Park. Maybe I'm overly dramatic. I don't know. Number 9, Coach Axtell's guys at Cortland up 5. Since the loss to St. Lawrence, they drew against a good Potsdam team, then beat Oswego and Fredonia. And in those 3 games alone, they scored 12 and only conceded 4. So something's going right in Cortland. Up 5 is Middlebury. They had at 5-1 and 2. They had an impressive win against Wesleyan at Wesleyan. Are they the best NESCAC? I think the whole NESCAC seems going through an interesting time, and I'm still waiting to see who emerges as the best. So, okay, at number 7 at 8-1 and 2, up 3, Calvin. Again, since losing to Chicago, they won 3 in a row, scoring 9 goals and only conceding 2. I like this team a lot, and I think they have a lot of more potential as the season comes to the tournament. So, number 6, Washington and Lee at 8-1 and 1, up 2. I will say I think the demise of Washington and Lee was a little bit premature, and they seem to be back to what they do and dispensing with their ODAC rivals without much mercy. So, okay, so now the top 5 is where it gets interesting. So, number 5, Johns Hopkins. Same as where I've had them for the last 3 polls. So they had wins against Case in the College of Worcester, and there's something that's just not convincing me. And look, I think in some of my notes on the boards, I said that Johns Hopkins, from the back to the midfield up until the 18, is as good as anybody. Just keeps the ball. You're chasing. You're in a bad spot. They just played Gettysburg and beat Gettysburg 1-0. You're in a bad spot, as Gettysburg did, to go down a man, because that just opens up a ton of space, gives them a lot of options. The issue I'm finding is that when they get to the 18, I think they think the game stays the same, and they don't take into account the dynamic of being deep in a defensive in their opponent's defensive posture. And so they try to do the same thing, and they're not making runs through or putting the ball behind, and it just, I don't know. They could go winning 1-0 for the entire season and are quite capable of making it to, let's say the Final 4. They're totally capable of doing that. But I maybe it's just me just looking for comfort for more goals. I don't know. Okay, number 4, same spot. This is another team that I'm just a little, I'm just not too sure of. They kind of, I don't know. Case, College of Worcester, they look pretty pedestrian against the College of Worcester. And I think there's a lot of games where they just don't look themselves. And it makes it a lot harder for them. And so, yeah, they're 9-0. But like I said, by the tournament time, these guys could be running the field. So next up, I'm going to give it to probably the most consistently good team that I've been – consistently good team at this level. And I'm giving it to Stevens. Up 3, they're 8-0-1. They had wins against Widener, who I think Widener is probably a lot better than people give credit to. and then to King's College, that was on such the great run at the beginning of the season. They are scoring multiple goals a game, and they're not letting up. And they have a great defense, a really good creative midfield, and then a pretty dynamic attack. So I'm not holding back here, and I'm jumping them up to third. Now, this is where the controversy begins. Who's one? Who's two? And hopefully I can explain myself a little bit. Number 2, University of Chicago. They're up 1. I had them at third. Now I have them at second because they beat North Park, and I thought North Park would give them a game. So they had really solid wins against Calvin and North Park, and then they just won yesterday on the road at Rochester. They have the best defensive block that I think possibly in the country. They are very hard to break down. Where I'm not too sure about, and even though they beat North Park 3-0, I'm not too sold on what they do in the attack. I do think they could score goals. They do have some. I can't even pronounce his name. Yeah, Zinski. I don't know. They have some capable guys up front, but it looks a little bit harder for them to score than it is to defend, which for everybody, obviously. But in their case, at this level, I would expect it to be a little bit easier for them. And then they only beat Rochester 1-0, which I hear, because of this darn paywall that Rochester does, I couldn't watch, but I had heard that they were pretty defensive, but I don't know for sure. So, which leaves me with number 1. And that's Messiah. And I'm sticking with Messiah. All of my polls have had Messiah number 1. And I mean this respectfully to Chicago, who, we can make arguments about who's first and who's second. And I wouldn't, at both, I think either one is right. But why I'm choosing Messiah first. There is something about this team for me that makes it number 1. And honestly, I'm not sure it's close. And actually, I don't think it is that close. I think this team moves the ball better than anyone at a pace faster than anyone. And I would say makes things happen on attack that nobody else does. I watched the game. They played Christopher Newport at homecoming on Saturday, which was, I don't want to say monsoon, but it was weather was pretty bad. Christopher Newport scored a goal in first, which happened to be off of a defender, which I think it might have been going wide, but anyhow. Messiah proceeded to manhandle Christopher Newport in a way that I hadn't seen in a while, especially in that first half where they just ran roughshod after that goal. That their passing is outrageous. How they get to attack and how they score goals is probably even more impressive. Of the 4 goals, 2 were run of play goals. Same exact play down the left where I think everybody touches the ball. They get the ball out wide. Player cuts in, takes a touch. Defenders are looking, and shots far post for 2 goals. They had a goal on a set piece, on a foul that was whipped in for a header at the near post. And then the fourth was Christopher Newport had 2 guys in the back chasing down a ball. No big deal, except for one of the forwards pressing, cuts off the pass, wins it, and the speed at which the left wing and the right wing, that ginormous player who I love, Matt McDonald, get on the attack is you can't defend that. And they slotted the ball from that press to Matt McDonald on the right, who drilled it far post for the goal. 4, just like that. and it was done. It was done. And it was remarkable. So I so again, I think if the two teams that sort of are at a level that I don't think I got to see Stevens a little bit more up against like some tougher competition, but I think there's a difference between number 2 and number 3, and there's a slight difference between number 1 and number 2. So anyhow, so that's my top 25. Comments, compliments, criticisms, by all means, feel free to drop. All right, everybody, that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Around D3. I know Jackie did. She's passed out. Hope you appreciated some of my observations, although I don't think they were very soccer heavy, but hey, this is my show. Thanks for all of your support. Really do appreciate it. Honestly, that is, I'm baffled by sort of how this is going. I mean, one of the shows I did, I had close to like 2,600 views. Like, how's that happen? But whatever, really grateful for it. Any comments, compliments, criticisms, feel free to drop them below or shoot me an email. I'm as accessible as ever. Just for your heads up, I think on Wednesday, either Wednesday or Thursday, another new show will be coming out with Nicholas Petru, who gives some great insight into the D3 game as only he can. So, and like I said in the first episode of the new show, I take my lead from him a lot. Like he's got a knowledge and follows the game so much more closely than I think I do. So really appreciative that he's going to take the time, and we're going to do a second episode. So with that, hope you have a wonderful day, and whenever you're watching this and wherever you are, again, appreciate the support, and have a good one. Thanks.